This is Paige Olson. Her method of why engaged creative play is so important in the development of our young people has been embraced by hundreds of families and organizations over the past 20 years. And she's developed programs and actionable items that families can do in their homes to create engaged, interesting young adults. Today we're talking about memory books. Paige, we were speaking earlier about memory books, and one of the things that you pointed out was that you didn't just start making memory books as if it was a photo album. You saw a specific need in children, and you basically developed memory books as a tool to serve that need. Could you talk a little bit about what that basic need is you found in children?
Well, you're right. I didn't go into having kids going, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do memory books, and that's all this kind of stuff. It just became something that I started to recognize.
Okay.
I did go into it saying I'm going to document my children's first year, which I did.
Okay.
But then I noticed that as they got older, they were doing really interesting things, and not only do they not remember really well because their brains are so young and so immature, they also are so self-centered. It's a me world. It has to be a me world. That's who they are.
Okay.
But in being a me world, it allows them to share who they are and get to know who they are and let those around them know who they are, including people that live far, far away, like grandparents or other relatives.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. I see we have quite a stack of things here. Why don't you introduce us to sort of what a memory book looks like?
Well, we did memory books for many different reasons. Let's put that aside for just a minute, because I'll start with some of these bigger ones. These we did as they got older, and so we'll talk about those in a minute. But
And this is just the size of a piece of paper.
that's the size of a piece of paper.
Okay.
But these were actually, this is paper from, again, this is 15 years ago. I don't know if this particular paper, it's not the paper that really matters, but these were sold years ago for photographs. So
Yeah,
the important thing is that it is an acid-free paper, so because you don't want your pictures to deteriorate over time.
Okay.
And so the few most important things is that actually pictures were taken, words are written that matter to the child, but then they're also laminated,
Okay.
so that they don't easily get damaged or destroyed.
Okay. All right. Now, this these memory books, could you take us through, as you were speaking of earlier, since the end result is not the goal here, the memory book itself, rather it's the whole process behind the book, the process of creating and then how the book is used. Could you briefly take us through some of that?
Well, the first thing is pictures are taken, and they don't have to be taken by the parent. I mean, nowadays with digital, kids love to play with cameras too, and whether it's your phone or camera, it doesn't matter. But
Sure.
even children should take pictures, and once they're taken, then within the first week after whatever it is that you want to do, you put it together, because what you want to do is it's not just the pictures, and it's critical the pictures get printed out. This isn't something, this is a tangible item.
Right.
And then you also want to add what the child said or says or their specific memory, because what you're doing is you're capturing a moment in time. For example, here my son says, chores or play. Well, for him to be able to identify with that as he grows up, that he actually felt that way, actually continue to feel that way, that's an important identification for him to have.
Okay, so that means that while you were building this book, you actually sat down with Willis, decided which pictures to use, and decided what text to write here? Or was this something you did all on your own?
I didn't, well, yes and no. I mean, obviously age counts. But it wasn't that I sat down with him after the fact.
Okay.
I paid attention. When we went and did things, it wasn't the kids went and did something and mom or dad went and did something else. It's
Okay.
that jointly, the adults paid attention, and we ebbed and flowed, but we paid attention to what the kids were saying. And we either remembered it or we wrote it down or something. So that documentation remained. We also, and this is why it's important to do it within a week, is because the kids' memories are so poor, is that you ask them as you put this together what they remember or how they relate to that particular picture. So it's a kind of a conglomeration of a lot of things. So the end result is when they remember that day at the ranch, or when they remember that whatever that is, whatever the book is about, they remember it in a positive way.
Okay, so this book then, how is it used?
It's really used by the child in a couple of ways. One, it's for the child to remember. In other words, it's for the child to sit down and look at the pictures and recall. It's for the child and the parent to sit down and remember a wonderful thing. It's to remember the past, like this one here is we moved, and so it's remembering, we went around the house and took pictures, and it really was to remember those first years in their life living in this house.
Oh, I see.
And so they're created for different reasons. And then as the child gets older, it's a way to share. It's a way to engage with people that are visiting, friends and whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's very nice.
And then by doing that, they're getting an idea of who they are.
Right, and then they can interact with the relatives or adults or or friends in a way where they actually have something to say, and they can show that they have done interesting things in their lives.
Right, there
That's
becomes
great.
a conversation, and in this particular case, sharing this with, let's say, Grandma and Grandpa, who in this particular case lived in the house.
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa then can give them other stories.
Oh,
So it
right.
can lead to other things as well. I mean, for me to sit here and say, well, there's just one thing or two things or just these things, I mean, the neat thing about these is that there's so much that they can offer that I might not even know, because the kids kind of lead it.
Right. So you were just mentioning that there were sort of different classifications of these books, that they fall into different categories. Could you go through a few of those categories for us?
Well,
I see this one's the
this one is
house that they moved out of.
right. So this is
Okay.
the house they moved out of. This one here, we actually in that house, and it has the months label because it was a journey.
Okay.
We did a bathroom remodel, and the
Okay.
kids were a part of it.
Okay.
And so this is that story with pictures of them participating, comments that they made, and just again, it shows a family doing something together, and it shows what kinds of things that this can-do thing. I mean, these children are both under the age of 4, and yet here they are participating in something, so they get this idea of that they have value in the family.
Right, so this is sort of a family affair through the eyes of the child.
Through the eyes of the child, right.
Okay,
And then
great.
We talked
So
about
then we
this
have-
trip.
This is a trip, okay,
Right. Then
good.
here we have a couple of books here, actually, based on the interests of my kids, and what they are is these are their interests at a young age.
Okay.
And they went through and they said, hey, I want to do a book, showing this thing that I am just passionate about. And so we made a book titled according to what the child wanted and whatever, about these things that they're passionate about. So those are some books as well.
Okay, so we have in our case here, we have books that are, I guess you might call them research, the child's research, which
Right.
is talking about a subject they're interested in, but
Right.
they're not actually in the photographs. This is
No.
more their research.
Right,
Okay.
their research and
okay.
interest.
So that's a different classification of book. Okay.
Right, then we have another book here. This is a mining book, and
Alright.
the neat thing about this book is that it's not only trips we took
Mm-hmm.
to a mining museum and some other underground mines, but we also have mining in our family, and so it's also a way to get to know your family better. So
Okay.
get to know, in this case, an uncle better, and information about him, things that he's shared. So becomes a conversation about who is your family.
Okay. Okay.
So this,
that's another class.
That's another classification. And then
We have here.
this one is a family trip. So this
Okay.
is a long family trip. And this particular one, because the kids were young enough, this is a joint book.
Okay.
And it just goes, things that they wanted to say. But as they got a little older, what we did is we made 2 separate books. So this one is by my daughter, and this is the same trip by my son.
Okay.
Now, back in the day when we didn't have digital, we always got doubles of pictures.
Yeah.
And so they each got to pick and choose the pictures that were important to them, the memories that were important to them, and we created these books based on what they wanted to remember, not what I dictated that they should remember or anybody else. So that's what's important about these. And these last ones are, these last 2 are a major trip that we also took. But as they got older, what we actually did is we started doing, well, it became Christmas presents, and this was part of them getting to know themselves. And so these are the master copies. So when they gave them to somebody, it would be a nice copy, and it would have the same ties that these do in holes.
All right.
But what it is this is a way for this year in their life, like 2002 is their age and their name, and then it's what they remember and how they identify themselves at this particular point in their life. What are their interests? You know, we've got a future firefighter here, and he liked to play military, and so forth and so on. So this is basically becomes, for him and for family members that he gave this to, a way to identify himself. Who am I? What are my interests? You know, what do I like to do? Who do I like to spend time with? And so forth and so on. And what are the colors that I like? And so it's just a great way for them to share, you know, who they are. And it's a great way for them to really think about it.
Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you very much for introducing us to this very useful tool to help us develop our children into interesting, engaging young adults. If you'd like to learn more about Paige's memory book, please click the link below. You'll get some free information, and you'll get a free sample of one of the memory books that she made with her children a number of years ago.